Hey there, everyone. I'm Ashley Bullington, and you're tuned in to the Campfire, our Inside High School sports show where we break down districts from around the greater Houston area. This week, we're going to give you some small school action. There are so many good teams in 2A, 3A, and 4A that you can catch right here in the greater Houston area. And we're going to break them down in the film session presented by your local Geico offices in Cypress, Katy, Spring, and Pearland. Let's begin our tour through the small schools in Class 4A Division I. Huffman-Hargrave, Splendora, and Livingston make up half of District 10, with Huffman-Hargrave coming off an 11-1 season. 8 Houston ISD schools from District 11, and it should be fun having them all back together in one district. Look for District 12 to be highly competitive, with Stafford moving to join Bay City, El Campo, Brazosport, Meadville, and Columbia. Sealy drops down to 4A Division II, and the Tigers join Belleville, Lamarck, Royal, Sweeney, and Wharton in District 12. Navasota also drops down to 4A Division II and finds itself in District 13. Greater Houston area teams are spread out in Class 3A Division I. Columbus reached the state semifinals last season, and the Cardinals joined Bowling, Hempstead, and Hitchcock to make up 4 of the 6 teams in District 12. Edna and Palacios head south to District 15, while Cold Spring Oakhurst lands in District 9, and Cleveland Tarkington in District 10. East Bernard advanced to the state semifinals in Class 3A Division II last year, and the Bremas should be serious contenders again in 2020. Joining East Bernard in District 14 are Van Vleck, Alta Rice, Danbury, Wallace Brazos, and Tidehaven. And don't forget about Anderson Shiro in District 12 either. And finally, dropping down to 2A Division I is Ganado. Ganado reached the regional final in 3A Division II last year and should be a major threat in District 13 this fall. And those great teams have great players. We're going to tell you more about those players in our next segment, Players on the Rise. Dax Bridges is a key part of the Needville offense. The wide receiver averages 30 yards of reception and has 12 receiving touchdowns. Jordan Woodward is going to be a junior in the coming season, but the Roughnecks are going to look to him to be a leader on the offense. In 2019, Woodward had 714 rushing yards and over 70 carries on the season. Richard Reese of Belleville is our next player on the rise, though he's already solidified himself as a big-time player in the small school ranks. As just a sophomore, he has over 2,500 rushing yards and 24 rushing touchdowns. Bulldogs running back Xavier Woods is going into his junior year with a great sophomore year performance. Woods had almost 1,000 rushing yards last season and 7 touchdowns on 152 carries. Another class of 2021 player to keep an eye out for is Lamarck quarterback Armand Robinson. The Cougar had 336 yards passing last season. Soon-to-be senior Devin Chapman received high praise from Coach Bossy. Chapman had almost 1,200 rushing yards and over 52 yards per game. The Brema also had 20 rushing touchdowns in his 2 years on varsity. And those players are great on the gridiron. But do you know somebody from the high school sports scene who's doing great in your community? Nominate them for our Chevy Spotlight. A player, a coach, or a team who's going the extra mile in your area. To nominate, go to IHSSChevySpotlight.com. And once a month, we'll be featuring one of your nominations on our social platforms. Now it's time to shift focus to the coaches who make their players and teams great in our Media Day segment. I'm here with Coach Mike McEachern of Huffman-Hargrave. Coach, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Talk about, the teams in your district that are going to be tough for you guys this year, as well as some of the teams in 4A as a whole. especially from the greater Houston area, that are always hard teams to play?
You know, people that stand out in our district, first of all, it's a very competitive district from top to bottom. There are no weeks off. We got Viter, which moved down from Class 5A this year. They'll be new to our district down in the Beaumont area. So their numbers alone and the brand of ball that they've been playing for a while will be tough. LCM, which is also in the Beaumont area, Lumberton's in the Beaumont area. Those are the three schools down there that are always tough on us. And we have a huge rivalry with Splendora, which is right next door. And of course, Livingston down the highway. So those are teams in our district that we're from a 6-team district that make it tough week in and week out. In our region, you know, you always have to look at the Henderson and the Kilgores. You know, Palestine is the one that knocked us out last year in the second round. Of course, Carthage moved down to Division II. So no one's upset about that stayed in Division I, that's for sure. And you also have Needville and West Columbia. Those are some of the headliners in our region. And of course, when you talk 4A Division I football, you can't say it without your Argyles and your Waco, La Vegas, Midlothian Heritages, you know, Brownwood, schools like that just year in and year out are going to be at the top 10 from the start to the finish.
You know, people talk a lot about 6A football and 5A football, but why do you think that more people should be paying attention to that 4A, 3A, 2A, you know, those small schools that it's Friday Night Lights, it's
right.
what movies and TV shows are made of.
Exactly. And you know, Friday Night Lights are Friday Night Lights. It doesn't matter if you're a 6-man school or, you know, a 6A school. It's Friday Night Lights, and that's what that community and those towns, that's what they build around. That's the tradition that it is in the state of Texas is like no other. And you can talk to coaches that have been in and out of Texas and gone to other states, and that's what they talk about. What intrigues me about the 4A, 3A, and 2A schools is the fact that you've got kids that you're going to see them on the football field, and then after football season, you're going to see them on the basketball court. After basketball, you're going to see them on the baseball field and the track. And just so many of those multiple sport athletes that I admire those kids. They don't get an off season. They're going nonstop because they want to play for their school. They want to represent their school. And they have the ability to do that at some of the smaller schools. For some of your bigger schools, you may not get that opportunity just because of the pure numbers. So I think that's what is important to watch, you know, smaller classification in football.
Now we go from 4A down to 3A and talk to the head coach of the East Bernard Brahmas, Wade Bossy. First off, your last name is amazing. I have to say that once again. I know I've told you that twice already, but it's fantastic. But how are you doing?
I'm doing great. And you?
I am fantastic. Thank you for asking. One of the cool things about the smaller schools is that football is more of a culture than it really is in other areas. So talk about the culture of Brahmas football and the city of East Bernard.
Well, our culture in East Bernard is outstanding. The support from the community, from the school, is unbelievable. I think the best way to describe it is, you know, you don't see a lot of folks out at a track meet. But even in the spring, when we're at a track meet, you look up in the stands, and there's a lot of maroon up there. And that's a good indication of what it's like year-round. Anything we're doing, very great support of. And if you have that, you have a chance.
Dallas Nowitzki and Shane Lovenka are actually in our Plays of the Year bracket, and they're in the Elite Eight right now.
I'm with you. Yeah, that was a heck of a play, wasn't it?
It was phenomenal.
Yes, yeah.
So one of the things is that we're doing on the Campfire and Inside High School Sports for this off season is we're talking about the different districts as well as kind of the landscape of the division and the classification that you're in. So one of the things that I want to discuss with you today is, so what is like your district like for East Bernard, and then what's kind of the 3A landscape that you guys have to compete against to be able to make it to AT&T Stadium?
Well, district-wise, I always feel like we have a tough district. Coach Lucio at Tidehaven and his staff, their kids have done a great job over the last 5 to 10 years, and they are extremely competitive, hard to beat. I think a lot of years people think we're supposed to beat them a little bit better, but they give us a heck of a game, and they have beaten us a couple of years ago where they're just some hard-fighting kids, and that's what you get down here in this district. Van Vleck has all kinds of athleticism, so they're extremely hard to play with. You've got Danbury, and we've got Brazos coming back to us that always are getting better. And then you've got a new one in Rice Consolidated that has fared very well in 3A Division I, and they've done a great job. That'll be a heck of a ball game for us. When you look elsewhere outside of our district, in our region, Poth, who we have not matched up with, is extremely competitive and is always in the running. We've matched up with Blanco over the years. They've gone away from us now, but we're going to get a new district because that kind of northern district of our region has shifted, and you've got Franklin, Lexington, Rogers, Clifton, and Buffalo all in that district. It may be the toughest district in 3A Division II. And it's going to be a new challenge in our region to be able to get back to the semifinals and to have a shot like we've been able to do, fortunately, the last 2 years.
Sounds like there's some big-time powerhouses in your division, as well as 3A.
Getting stronger, yeah. The region got a lot stronger this year, in my opinion.
Thank you so much, Coach Bossy and Coach McEachern. Good luck to Huffman, Hargraves, and East Bernard this season. Now we take a look at that East Bernard play that won Play of the Year. All season long, we asked you to help us decide our Play of the Year. And after tens of thousands of votes throughout the year, this incredible one-handed grab by East Bernard Shane Levenka stands out as the top play of the 2019-2020 school year.
I don't really remember much from that play. I kind of remember just jumping up and seeing the ball in my hands and falling to the ground trying to call a timeout.
The catch was a little bittersweet because it came in the Brema's only defeat of the season, a state semifinal loss to Omaha Hewitt. Regardless, it was the culmination of a memorable senior season Levenka shared with his East Bernard teammates.
This season meant a lot to me. I spent it with some of the guys I've known my whole life, and I made a lot of good memories that I'll cherish forever.
Congratulations to Shane Levenka and the East Bernard Brema's for winning this season's Play of the Year. Now we have a couple of words from our sponsors and a trivia question. This trivia question is, how many defensive tackles did Belleville's Emmanuel Sanders have his senior year? A, 100, B, 49, C, none, or D, 65? The answer when we return.
Chevrolet Inside High School Sports is brought to you by your Houston area Chevy dealers. Visit your nearest dealer to test drive our award-winning products. The film session is presented by your local Geico offices in Cypress, Katy, Spring, and Pearland. To get more information or a quote, go to geico.com/Houston.
Welcome back to the Campfire. Our trivia question for this week is, how many defensive tackles did Belleville's Emmanuel Sanders have his senior year? A, 100, B, 49, C, none, or D, 65? If you answered B, 49, you're correct. Now it's time for our district breakdown. We have Inside High School Sports Insider Matt Harris to talk more about the small school landscape for us. Matt, over to you.
Thanks, Ashley. We're talking 3A and 4A schools in this week's district breakdown before we hit on full districts starting with 5A Division II next week. In 3A, East Bernard excelled again in 2019 as the Brema's made a second straight state semifinal appearance. They ultimately fell to Paul Pewitt 24-18 as the offense struggled to get going in the second half. Fortunately, East Bernard will be the beneficiary of continuity at the most important position on the field. Quarterback Dallas Novick is back for his junior season after throwing for nearly 1,300 yards and accounting for 25 total touchdowns as a sophomore. That continuity will be important as Houston's top 3A power will look to finally break through to a state championship in 2020. The 4A ranks were not quite as strong in the greater Houston area in 2019. Only one team, Belleville, made it to round 3, while most schools lost in round 1. This is partly because Houston schools only make up about half of Division 3, so there's no guarantees for teams to move on like we see in 5A and 6A. Unfortunately for Belleville, they'll have to go through East Texas powerhouse West Orange Stark just to get to the state semifinals. West Orange Stark, of course, has dominated Region 3 for at least the last decade. But look for Belleville to once again be the cream of the crop among Houston 4A schools. That's it for our 3A and 4A preview. Back to you, Ashley.
Thanks, Matt. Awesome insight as always. I'll see you next week. That's all we have for this edition of the Campfire. Next week, we'll be diving into very specific districts, starting with 10 5A Division 2. Until then, stay tuned into all of our social platforms. We're bringing you some great original content focused on small schools. Until the next week, I'm Ashley Bullington, and thank you so much for tuning into the Campfire.